Good evening, everybody. I make it 3 minutes past 5, so we can begin this meeting of the Cabinet held on Wednesday, the 17th of April. We'll dispense with the formalities. Apologies for absence. I believe we have an apology for Councillor Nagpal. Don't believe there are any others. No urgent matters. Matters to be considered in private as ever. When it does come to any of the gold papers that are in the pack, I actually don't think we've got any this week. But if we did, I would ask that you would not refer to them unless, of course, you've indicated beforehand, so that we don't have to clear the gallery. Declarations, we've done that. Minutes of the previous meeting. Are Cabinet members content to approve the minutes of the previous meeting? Thank you very much. Appointments to outside bodies and subcommittees. And we have to appoint Peter George to the shareholder representative of Broadway Living. Is that agreed? Thank you very much. So we go to our first paper for this evening, is the Council Plan Performance Report for Q3. As ever, we go through this each quarter to just have a look back principally on three key things. Number one is the delivery against the commitments that we made in the Council Plan against the in-year position. We also take a look at the, if you like, the health check key performance indicators that tell us whether or not we're performing as an organisation, and then our 3-year targets towards the commitments that we made as an administration in our manifesto and the council plan. So as always, I'm going to invite each cabinet member just to say a brief few words on their portfolios. And towards the end, I believe we have some questions from opposition groups before we take the report. So with that in mind, I am going to make sure I go to the right page and invite the first person, which is Tackling Crime and Inequality, and that's Councillor Anand.
Thank you, Chair.
Oh,
Is this
sorry.
working? No, sorry. Thank you, Chair. On number one, the police recorded offences of personal robbery and violence. Chair, it is very concerning to hear about the increase in personal robbery and violence in Ealing Broadway. But it's not just isolated to Ealing, it's across London. There is an issue with all this, and I think we need to be very vigilant, and we need to be looking at the targeted police operations, which are crucial for really addressing such issues, and our collaboration with the dedicated superintendent of police, and now with the extra police inspectors in place as well for our borough. It's a really positive step, and we want residents to stay very vigilant and be able to also report any suspicious activities in the borough so that we can work together to make sure that we can tackle robbery and violence within our borough. Also, look at another red one, which is the number 3, percentage of young offenders engaged in suitable education, training and employment. Chair, all children are referred to the YGS and have their education, training and employment reviewed as part of their assessment to make sure that the planning process is in place to support those young people. But sometimes it is difficult. There are challenging behaviours, and circumstances really can affect our figures, where we have children who need support around mental health, learning disabilities, and of course, sometimes there are family circumstances that have an impact on these figures as well.
Thank you very much. Climate Action, Councillor Costigan.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the performance for the climate action portfolio, I think has been really, really good. There is a set of figures in the report that bring out some of the key successes. So in terms of active travel, we have now, we hit the milestone of 100 bike hangars installed in the borough just in March. We're now up to 106, I believe, so well on the way to the 150 that we promised. And we've doubled the number of electric vehicle charging points in the borough, and we're around 700 at the moment, with more on publicly accessible private land also in the borough to add to that. We have now got to 28 school streets, and myself and the leader, in fact, we're at the first secondary school School Street that we've implemented just recently, and that was in Villiers School. In terms of our parks and green spaces performance, we have done a lot of work in looking at creating new green spaces for our residents. We know that we have declared that we're going to have a regional park in the borough. We opened Acton Plaza last year as one of the first of our 10 new parks. We hope to be opening a new park in Perryvale and the new nature reserve in Warren Farm in the coming year. And there's some update in the report on the Glade Lane, the new park coming forward there as well. Trees, we promised we would plant 50,000, and so far in this planting season we've planted 19,000, which is a record, I think, for Ealing. It's more than we've ever done before, and we've also delivered 5 new community growing spaces in the borough. In terms of waste and recycling, we continue to be in the top 3 best boroughs for recycling in London. I think we were number 2 in the latest set of figures, but we're going beyond just looking at recycling. We also want to look at reuse and minimising waste in the first place, which is why we are opening a circular economy hub in Acton, and work is progressing on that. And we did have an issue with fly tipping in the last quarter where we had an IT problem where some of the reports of fly tipping weren't actually getting through the computer system and reaching GEL. So we're still sorting out some of the impact of that, but we have got backup to performance at the current time. In terms of retrofitting, we're more than halfway, in fact, to our target of retrofitting 750 homes in the borough. We've reached 421, so we will hope to achieve that. And finally, I just wanted to say that we have already implemented 7 new community energy schemes in the borough, but we'll be launching a new scheme looking for more ideas for community centres, churches, other buildings open to the public, where we can help to make them more energy efficient, including with I won't say it, I'll say solar panels. I'll go for that instead.
Thank you very much. Let's move to Healthy Lives, Councillor Blacker.
Thank you, Chair. This year's very much been the year of voice and choice. So we've been working very hard to make sure that we have the voice of those who use our services and carers at the heart. So there's a reference to partnership boards that we've been setting up this year in the documentation. Tomorrow afternoon, we have an initial meeting of the Strategic Co-Production Partnership Board, which brings all that work together at a strategic level to make sure that the voice of our users and our carers is coming very much through to the decision-making process of the council. We've also made good progress on our direct payments projects and hope that those will stimulate a broader market for community-based support for residents and other direct payment users in the coming years. There is still one red indicator in the KPIs under our area, but I think I've mentioned this before when we looked at this report. That's not anything to worry about. Numbers are steady in terms of overall numbers of residents of care homes. It's simply that we've transitioned some short-term placements into permanent admissions because that better reflects what is happening on the ground.
Thank you very much. And in Councillor Nakar's absence on A Fairer Start, I think, I'd sort of like to commend and thank Officer Progress on bringing really to life the Social Care Academy and making sure that we're really embedding our model of practice through Brighter Futures. We've seen a significant deployment of that in terms of our workforce, and that's partly designed to ensure that we're recruiting and retaining the bright and the best. And we're seeing really good progress, of course, also in SEND placements. We said that we would do 70 over 4 years at the point of the council plan. We've actually almost delivered double that now with over 100, I believe, over 120 places. And of course, we've seen a significant number of people and young people benefit from the HAF programme over the last holiday. And there will be many, many more of our bits of deployment of the Social Care Leaver Summit pledges still to go, but we've seen a significant number of them already completed, and a very good and positive discussion was had on some of the housing pledges at the last corporate parent panel just a couple of weeks ago. So we'll go now to Councillor Brett, Decent Living Incomes.
Thank you, Chair. Basically, we've been making really good progress building on the successes of Q2. So we've managed to get over 2,000 residents supported into employment by Work Healing. We've had 2,271 qualifications and training programs for our residents that have successfully come through. And we're continuing to support residents with the toughest barriers to employment to get good quality jobs. There are a couple of red flags just in terms of the report for Q3. And officers are aware of that, and we've got some mitigating things to improve those in Q4. We are continuing to make good progress with the Real Living Wage Action Plan, and we will be launching a campaign event in June, which is a really positive step forward in order to make, Ealing a real living wage place. And yeah, so continuing to support our residents with the cost of living crisis. And we've just signed off a new package for the next 6 months. And the council will continue also to take action against counterfeiters, bad businesses. We've had some really successful results in the last quarter, and we'll continue to do that going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now move to, if I get my order right, inclusive economy, Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. I'll pick out a couple of 2 or 3 indicators, different levels of performance. Continuing difficulties around the speed of answering telephone calls, and we're still looking at how to improve that. It's below where we want it to be. At the same time, we know that more and more people are finding other ways in which to get in touch with us, and not by kind of Steam-driven website, which is perhaps traditionally where we've run a metric. On the way up is the percentage of customers who are satisfied with the contact. We're not quite at the target yet, but that is on the up and looking very promising. But I think quite interestingly, given that we focus on individual indicators that people might find problematic, when you look at the measure of the percentage of residents satisfied with the way the council run things, you'll find that we find that it's substantially ahead of target and running it at 81% for the quarter. And I quite like that as an indicator. It has a nice macro feel about it. Clearly not complacent, but we have to take these things in a balance.
I'm sorry, you all had to hear me blow my nose, but I made sure the microphones were off, so the good people of YouTube didn't have to hear that. But thank you very much, Councillor Donnelly. We move to good growth and new housing. Councillor Manro.
Thank you, Chair. I have 3 planning indicators which are all green, but I would like to give thanks to the planning team because they have performed really well this year. So all major applications, we were 100%, #1 in London, and we had virtually the highest number of applications, which was 41. So it's not only a matter of them performing well, but they do actually receive quite a large number of applications so 100% on that. On minor applications, we were on 98.9%, which is green again. And on other applications, we were on 98.6%. So our planning department is working very well. So congratulations to the officers who run that department, but it has actually improved over a lot this year. The other issue is around how many affordable homes that we've started. We're on 1,305. People are aware that the macroeconomic climate is in a very, very difficult position. So some have slowed down in terms of new applications getting started to be built. But today, with yourself, Leader, and Councillor Donnelly, we visited what was the old Goldsmiths Arms in Acton. They're now starting to be occupied. 65 new homes for people to occupy, 13 of them LAR, and 52 of them being London Living Rent. And they've already had over 800 applications for those 52 units. So there's a massive demand out there for generally affordable homes that people can live in. We're also been working with the Community Land Trust to find them a site to carry out a development. And we have promised them by the end of the year, we will have one site on the GLA register ready for people to bid for Community Land Trust to bid for. It will be open to all Community Land Trust organizations to have a look at that register and see if they want to bid for that and take that on as a development. We've also, as you know, with the local plan, we're at Reg 19. We've gone out, we're in consultation, and we're also creating local master plans, South Acton and others. So we are looking at our regeneration principles about making sure in certain areas we have a master plan so we can guide development around tall buildings, retrofit first, making sure that we actually do create thriving communities, but with zero carbon, etc. So there's a lot of good work going on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Safe and genuinely affordable homes, Councillor Mahfouz.
Thank you, Chair. So I want to start with the harsh reality of 14 years of the Tory government is obviously leaving people, more and more people homeless by the day. But we have had some achievements in those areas, both in terms of a number of areas. So one was we've invested over £20 million so far since the start of this administration in safe and secure places. And of course, we've already announced at a more recent cabinet that we want to go even further on that in the next couple of years. We've achieved 93 of the 100 placements that we wanted to provide in relation to safe spaces. And we've also spent £132 million investment in our properties to make sure that they are safe, secure, and healthy. One of the best outcomes that we've been able to achieve so far is that we've already supported 113 rough sleepers out of a 4-year target of 100. And of course, we'll continue to do as much as we can in that area. And it was great to hear Sadiq Khan pledge earlier in the week that he's going to look to work with hopefully a Labour mayor and a Labour government to reduce rough sleeping even further. But you'll see in the report, Chair, there is a lot of reds, and that is primarily around us continuing to have to house families in bed and breakfast and other types of similar inappropriate accommodation, and the number of households that are in temporary accommodation overall. That's not the numbers that we wanted to achieve. We said at the start of the year that it was quite, it was unrealistic for us to hit green in those areas, given the macro circumstances that we're facing with the housing crisis like we've never seen it before. But we have been one of the best boroughs at preventing homelessness, both in London and in the country. And the only way that we're going to see those reds turn green will be if we get a red mayor in City Hall and a red government in Parliament later on this year. So hopefully with those changes, we will be able to turn that tide going forward. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And Thriving Communities, Councillor Newstubb.
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, while I'm disappointed that we didn't become the London Borough of Culture, we've made great progress on our cultural infrastructure plan, which is rooted in mapping and benchmarking our expectation for cultural provision across the borough. We know that our consultation on the regional park has huge enthusiasm for a cultural venue in the borough, so that is encouraging. We're making plans to widen the diversity and appeal and inclusion of our summer festivals, and continuing the development of our groundbreaking new approach to community engagement and community involvement in decision making, the Your Voice, Your Town initiative, which will be launching next month. Strong progress on our plans to become a borough of sanctuary, which really comes to life tomorrow when we'll have council officers across the council meeting with our voluntary sector and the people who do such great work to welcome refugees and asylum seekers to the borough. On more sort of practical issues, we are continuing to refurbish many of our tennis courts with the help of the LTA, which is fantastic, including 2 in Churchfields that I walked past yesterday. And again, we're able to upgrade and support improvements in many of our playgrounds, which work continues. Our visits to our libraries in terms of our metrics are holding up okay, and leisure centre visits are strong. So overall, we're seeing good progress in the Thriving Community Brief.
Thank you very much for all of those introductions. We do have questions from the opposition. Councillor Gallant, you're in the room, so I'll let you go first.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, there's a lot to discuss. Just two questions from me this time. Referring to paragraph 4.111, page 19 in the papers, I appreciate the excellent work of the Faith Forum, especially its discussions regarding tensions due to the ongoing situation in the Middle East. Has the forum shared its findings with similar organisations in other boroughs and with the Mayor of London? And the second question refers to 4.1.3, 4.1.4 and 4.1.5. Noted there's been success in prosecuting businesses for selling vapes to minors. Have measures been taken to generally reduce and discourage the unhealthy culture of vaping amongst children across Ealing?
Councillor, why don't you go first, Councillor Brett, and then I'll bring in Councillor Anand on the Faith Forum. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yes and no. Basically, you know, it's not against the law for people to vape. Having said that, it is against the law to sell vapes to underage children. And I think our Ealing Council's record speaks for itself over the last 6 months, even the last year, having record numbers of prosecutions. And so I don't really understand the question in that sense. It's not against the law, and it would be something that would come from central government in terms of like, health problems, in the same way that there would be a national anti-smoking campaign.
Or indeed legislation on smoking that you know, a significant number of Councillor Gallant, your own party, objected to, even I think was it last night in Parliament. And I think also probably Councillor Costigan, the lobbying work that I know that you've done, as have other members across London, not just part of the West London Waste Authority, but also ourselves in writing to government on single-use vapes, for example, as well. You know, I think that we can commend that work as much as we can, the enforcement activity that has already taken place. Councillor Anand, did you want to come in on the point on the Faith Forum?
Chair, the Borough Faith Forum was set up basically to work with all our faith groups who were such great partners during COVID. And we wanted to really tap in the very good work they'd been doing over the years, and also want them to continue to do that. I think with the tensions around the borough at that time, we worked very closely with our mosques and all other faith groups who felt intimidated or felt that they needed the support. And I think this is where the leader did address the Faith Forum group, and we actually openly discussed the issues around what is happening in other parts of the world. And it was very clear to everybody that the united front that we have from all the faith forums was to work closely with each other, and we will not tolerate any of this nonsense within our borough. And the support from each of those groups for each other was very high. And that evening, as it was so successful, we were able to openly talk about what was happening around the borough, and we openly discussed issues which was affecting the community. I think during these kind of times, this shows that as a community, we can come together and overcome these kind of barriers.
Thank you very much. Councillor Malcolm, you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got a question, first of all, about the genuinely affordable homes, Councillor Manra, that you recorded earlier. You've achieved 1,305. How far short do you feel you'll end up in the next 2 years? Because you're well short at the moment of the 4,000 target. And then Councillor Donnelly, you mentioned about the website metric, which you felt was due to obviously other people engaging in different sort of mechanisms and ways to contact the council. Does that mean that you're thinking of maybe decommissioning this metric and maybe replacing it with another type of engagement metric that's more reflective of what people are doing today?
Go on then.
Okay. So Councillor Malcolm, I wish I was a fortune teller, but let's see. We've got to 26, we're on 1,300. If the climate gets better in terms of us getting a Labour government, that would make life a lot easier. We are doing everything possible to try and increase the number of homes that we're doing bulk purchases. We've got the £150 million set forward for temporary accommodation purchase. We will move heaven and earth to try and get to our 4,000 target. But we have to be prudent. We can't just spend money, public money that doesn't pay for itself. So we have to, balance the needs of making sure that we can financially afford to bulk purchase homes, get homes built. You're aware of all the issues around developers and builders going bankrupt and us having to deal with those issues. So I know you've been briefed. So yes, it's very, very difficult to ask somebody what would happen in 2 years' time. I can't say, but we will try our best to make as many developments work, get them built, work with our partners, the housing associations, etc., to make sure that we can get developments away and get them built. I went to one today, and I remember the Liberals opposing the Goldsmiths Arms planning application. Now you go there and you see 65 genuinely affordable homes for our residents to move into, and people are happy now with that development. But at the time, I remember many people opposing the change, and that's the reality. You have to, if you want the homes to be built, you also have to support the building of those homes. It's not good enough to afterwards ask, why haven't you built as many? Because you oppose most of those buildings. So we'll do what we can, but I'm not a fortune teller and I can't get to that number and tell you that today.
Thank you, Chair. Well, there's always a balance to be struck between seeking to keep some continuity in metrics in order to demonstrate how one is progressing and reflecting the fact that the context of a metric is changing, and we do look at that all the time. I don't have a strong view at the moment around the metric on the website. I mean, this originates going a long way back to get people to understand that they can do online things that they used to have to ring us up to do or go to an office to do, but you can now do things either by other means, or you can do things so completely in one go that you don't have to make recurrent visits. And I think clearly, if we get to a point of saying it's out, our residents ought to be visiting more often, when in fact they have no pressing need to do so, and they pass their lives very satisfactorily without having to interact that much with us, then great. So I think keep it under review, as with all the metrics.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just on the housing sort of figures, again, I sort of find myself in the same situation of sort of saying to the Liberal Democrats, like, you can't have it both ways. So you either support the administration's proposals to deliver 4,000 genuinely affordable homes in the most difficult economic climate that we've had as a consequence of Councillor Gallant's friends in the Conservative Party destroying the economy, taking £30 billion out of the the national economy, and sending inflation rates and interest rates skyrocketing. And of course, we discussed a lot yesterday, didn't we, that now Liz Truss wants us all to buy her book to pay for it. So you can either support the administration in its desire to continue to deliver those genuinely affordable homes despite the challenge, or you can frustrate our delivery through opposing any scheme that comes in front of the planning committee, and constantly critique the administration for its planning policies, for its attempts to try and advance the local plan regulation 19 consultation to give concrete assurance to developers about what we will and we won't take. So, I'm at cabinet yet again, sort of saying to the Liberal Democrats, what do you really believe? What would you like us to do? Because you can't sort of attack us and ask probing questions for things that you don't want us to do. It just feels a little bit etch-a-sketch. And I've said that a few times now. So I don't believe there's anything else. With all of that in mind, our cabinet. So as usual, cabinet. If you could sort of go back to the front of the report, note the recommendations, and can we agree them? Thank you very much. We now move to Councillor Costigan, who will introduce the Reclaim and Repurpose Ealing's Transport and Highways Programme 2004 to 2005.
Thanks, Chair. This is quite a detailed report, so it would certainly merit reading, and I hope that the opposition will read it before they ask questions on it on this occasion. But it is a very detailed report that sets out our £28 million investment programme into roads and pavements in the borough. What we've done is we have set out really our priorities for Ealing and the changes that we want to see in the way we move around the borough and the impact that has on our health and well-being as well. So we've set our aspirations for streets in the borough against our strategic priorities, which are around tackling the climate crisis, and combating inequalities in our borough, and of course creating those good green jobs that we are looking for. So the report itself looks at the £28 million funding package that I've mentioned, and it's divided into various different areas of investment. I think a big area that residents I know and will very much welcome is our investment in repaving and repairing streets in the boroughs. This includes both roads and pavements. The list is in the back of the report of those roads and pavements that have been identified by an independent survey of every street and road in the borough. These are the roads that are most in need of work. So we've made sure that we have prioritised those roads for that investment. We've also included in the report the up to £5 million funding that we've got from Transport for London and from HS2 to deliver some active travel projects in the borough. And this is because we are, of course, committed to the Mayor's transport strategy, which is about sustainable and safe transport and about reducing accidents and deaths on the road in London. But we also have our own commitments to spending £10 million over the next few years on active travel initiatives. And some of the funding includes the next phase of the Uxbridge Road segregated cycle lane, and that's from Hanwell to Iron Bridge. Also, investment in the current Live West Ealing proposals that have been consulted on. More bike hangers. We know we've already got 100. We've delivered 100 bike hangers, but there's more to come, as is laid out in this report. There's also funding for school streets. We've got to 28, but we want to get to 50. More Sheffield stands for parking bikes. And also we're investing as part of this programme in additional sustainable drainage programmes, so natural ways of taking that surface water off of our streets that is increasingly a problem. And we've also included in this report details on controlled parking zones that we've got planned with backing from residents for the coming year. On top of this, we've got some funding from developers in particular areas in the borough, and included under this, it's about £4 million worth of funding, is work we're doing in Northolt and also in Southall. I know already in the last year in Northolt, we have delivered an extra kilometre of segregated cycle lane in Kensington Road. And we have done similar in Greenford, where again, there's an extra kilometre of cycle lane there. But this report will continue with that work. And then the final area in the report that I wanted to highlight is we've also got a small amount of funding that we are putting towards a new pilot programme, which we're calling FUN, F-U-N, which is Free Range Urban Neighbourhoods. And the objective of the FUN programme is to test out some of our ideas for making walking and cycling easier in the borough. We have identified 7 areas of the borough where we think they would be suitable for some of these interventions, and these are detailed in the report. We will be doing consultation with residents affected in advance of making any changes, and we will also be doing before and after traffic surveys where there is any possibility that there might be an impact on the surrounding roads, and I want to make sure that people are aware that we are publicly committing to that, and it's also in the report. Of course, everything we do, Chair, is in the light of our Travel in Ealing Charter. We agreed the charter with local people and local groups, and we committed to making sure that we worked with local people to co-design solutions to traffic issues in the borough. And we will make sure that that is the spirit in which we implement this report. So it is, as I say, a really exciting investment in the streets of Ealing. It will, I hope, make them places that are more pleasant, that are greener, that have areas of shade, that have areas where people can sit and chat and even play. I think it will be a great addition to our streets, and hopefully marks a new way of looking at streets in the borough, not just places to walk through, but places to actually enjoy. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much. And again, I've got some questions from opposition members. So again, Councillor Gallant, you're in the room. You go first.
Thank you, Chair. I've read the detailed report, I can assure you, and much enjoyed it. I have 3 questions. You want them all at once, or? Yeah, okay. So first question is an overall question. Noted that many new EV charging points are proposed across the report, but the report makes no mention of exploring pavement gullies, which would allow residents to charge electric vehicles from residents without driveways to charge electric vehicles from their own homes. Can the strategy keep these under consideration, please, given that they've been tested in other places, that government grants have been made available for them, they can withstand movements in the ground, and they would encourage more take-up of electric vehicles? Second question, reference 4.11, page 63. Drivers are taking advantage of a lack of enforcement to park up permanently on some single yellow lines. Can the strategy include more enforcement and attention to these areas? And referring to the Appendix C, page 78. Now, I appreciate that free-range urban neighbourhoods fun will be rolled out only after considerable consultation. Are you not concerned that unwanted and unwarranted changes to layout risk repeating the debacle of the LTNs?
Councillor Costigan.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Gallant. On your first question about electric vehicle charging, and you've raised whether we could look at gully charging, and that is where you run I guess like a charging wire underneath the pavement to get to the public highway, so that you can charge on the highway if you don't have parking in your front garden, but use your domestic supply. It's certainly something we have looked at previously, and I've answered council questions on the subject. I've also met local residents to discuss the issue. There has been some pilots that have taken place across the country, including one in Oxford, and we have looked at the result of that. There are some further pilots, and we're awaiting the results of those. There are, however, some issues. In London, for example, and in Ealing in particular, there is a significant parking stress in many areas of the borough. And to say to people that the area outside of their house was in effect theirs and could stop other people parking in that space would be an issue that we'd have to look at in detail. And we certainly don't want to get into a position where we're having to mediate between residents who are arguing about who owns the space in front of their house. The second issue is in terms of liability. We own the road, as it were, in front of somebody's home, and what kind of Maintenance regime would there be for anything put into the public highway? Who would be responsible for it in the future? Would there be any financial impact on the council? There are questions like that that have not yet been answered. I'm afraid to say that I know government have recently said that they will offer people a small grant to do this. Unfortunately, they didn't actually speak to local councils before coming up with this potentially, possibly, some might say, pre-election wheeze. They never talked to local government. They never asked us about any of these issues. So at this point, we don't know how it will work. They haven't made clear in the guidance how we will address any of these issues. So I do hope that they will make that clearer so that we are able to ensure that, you know, we take forward any future schemes with the best interests of people in Ealing and of public services. But we will, of course, continue to look at these issues. The second question was about parking, and this report is not about parking. It's about changing our roads and our pavements. However, hopefully you will have noticed that we announced the week before last that we have successfully brought our parking services in-house. We've done that because we want to make sure we can provide the best service for residents. We want to ensure that we cut down on congestion in the borough, on bad parking in the borough. As part of bringing the service back in-house and making it part of Greener Ealing, we've taken on 20 new civil enforcement officers. We've also got a new depot opening in Acton, just down the road from yourself, Councillor Gallant. And we will have a new shift system, which will allow us to have more nighttime enforcement. I think all of this should have a significant impact on improving enforcement levels in the borough. And I've had actually quite a number of emails from people, from residents already, thanking us for this and saying they're already noticing a difference. I think your final question was about the fund programme and about consultation. And certainly I can reiterate that we'll be fully consulting with local residents on any changes that are put forward where there is a potential impact. I would say very clearly that the Travel and Ealing Charter was implemented with the learning of the low traffic neighbourhoods very much in our mind. So we take a totally different approach. We now make sure that we do things with residents rather than doing things to residents. So the fund programme will follow very much that new approach. And I am confident that the changes that are listed in the report are ones that actually shouldn't have a massive impact on traffic in any case, because we are not planning any restrictions to traffic going down any particular road in the borough. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And Councillor Malcolm.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got three questions. The first one relates to the elements of the schemes here. There are obviously some schemes that get agreed to go ahead and some that don't. One of those that wasn't was one where yourself and the Director of Highways attended, where there'd previously been a death on that road.
Councillor Malcolm, just as a reminder that it's a question, so if you could put the question, it doesn't need a long preamble.
Yes. Can I ask that when there is schemes that are turned down, they are also referenced either to the councillors or the resident associations who raised them, so that the feedback of why something didn't get proceeded with is also included, rather than just knowing which ones have gone ahead. I was going to mention that it's very positive that the pilot schemes will go ahead with pre and post data. And my last question relates to the fund schemes. And with regard to road closures, if there are road closures that are proposed as part of these or any future fund projects, will you make sure as part of that there is a local vote to make sure that you're not sort of allowing LTNs through the back door almost?
So, Councillor Costigan, I believe Councillor Malcolm probably asked you that last question without listening to the answer to Councillor Gallant's last question, but perhaps you could repeat the answer to Councillor Gallant's question to Councillor Malcolm.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, in response to the second question, to repeat what I said already, there are no road closures or indeed any restrictions to any traffic going down any particular road in any of the 7 areas in what is in the report or what is being considered. In terms of your first question, which was regarding proposals or ideas that might not have received LIP funding, which is the funding we get from Transport for London, just to be clear. If there's a particular road that you want to know about, then just do email me about it. But I have to say that overall, the main answer to why some of the projects we would like to do aren't on the list of what's funded by Transport for London. The main answer to that is because the government has massively cut the funding for Transport for London that they in turn are able to send to us. This funding that we use for these schemes has been cut by half since COVID. And the last few funding rounds where Transport for London basically begged for additional funding for this area and local councils begged for additional funding, we were turned down and the funding remains at just 50% of it was recently. So that is the main answer to your question. It is lack of central government funding, I'm afraid.
And, and also, I mean, there was a period of time where, the Department for Transport were literally sending, party political appointees from central government to sit on TfL's committees directing what they could and couldn't do. I mean, it was a ridiculous scenario in which the Tories, rather than giving back control to local residents, were sort of hoarding it all for themselves. And that just seems to me to be sort of antithetical to the strategy which we are taking through the transport strategy, which is to say, they're everybody's roads and that we should all be in control of them. And that means doing things on those roads that we perhaps have seen much less of in recent years, which is young people playing. And if we can get back to that situation, then I'm sure we'll all appreciate it that bit more. Are there any other points or questions from members of the Cabinet? If not, then if we could note the recommendations in the report, and I'll ask that they're agreed.
Great.
Thank you very much. And we move to Male Violence Against Women and Girls Action Plan. Councillor Anand.
Thank you, Chair. The report and its appendices set out the Council's partnership action plan for tackling male violence against women and girls over the next 3 years. That's for the years 2024 to 2027. Male violence against women and girls is a health and human right issue, and it cuts across so many areas of the Council's work and that of our partners. This action plan will direct activity across the partnership, and it will support partners in holding each other to account, ensuring that a commitment to making the borough a safer place for women and girls is at the heart of everything that we do. Chair, the strategy actually points out and is focused around 4 priority areas, which is prevention, support for victim survivors, developing a community coordinated response, and holding perpetrators to account. And also, Chair, the action plan has been developed by Ealing Walk Strategic Group and agencies who have contributed and committed to delivering which actions which are included in the report. And also, Chair, just to say finally that the annual report will go to overview and scrutiny to make sure that we are scrutinizing the report and we are held accountable of the actions, and the action plan is being delivered by our partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gallant, you have a question.
Thank you, Chair. Needless to say, I support all the recommendations in the report wholeheartedly. 2 quick questions. How can we make it easier for women and girls to report sexual violence, allaying fears that they might have to describe and relive their trauma in open court? And the second question is, distressingly, Gambian MPs, 92% of whom are men, voted in March 2024 to overturn the country's ban on FGM. And now, are you concerned that this might encourage or stimulate illegal FGM networks in Ealing?
May I take the latter question first on FGMs? Chair, we haven't seen the evidence of any increase in the occurrence of FGMs, and we're not aware of any sort of connections to legislation of the FGM abroad that creates any specific challenges in Ealing. But as you've mentioned, the move in Gambia by the legislators that want to overturn the 2015 ban in Gambia on the FGM. So the human rights groups and others are rightly protesting this motion in the strongest of terms. But in Ealing, Chair, we really do continue to work closely with our groups like Forward, which supports at-risk communities and tackle the real issues of FGM, and our VOG strategy and action plan commits the partnership to supporting these communities and developing a better community sort of coordinated approach. And Councillor Glant, it's evident that in this country, we're against this, it's against the law, and we will prosecute any of the perpetrators if caught in these kind of actions. Reporting awareness and some of the pathways, Councillor Glant, as part of our Safer Ealing for Women's Successful Home Office bid and our wider commitment, Ealing is one of the few local authorities who have a dedicated women's website, saferealing.co.uk. Please do roll it out to all the women that you might come into contact with who need support, which is continuously updated and provides all sorts of pathways for reporting crime, reporting concerns, and also accessing any of the support and services. But we also continue to hold action days to support and awareness raising initiatives with our partners, such as the Popular Police walk and talk event, which a woman police officer will sort of carry out, and also provide advice through our schools network and resident engagement network, and also social media about how to report the issues. But Ealing has also championed the use of the Police Street Safe app, which is quite popular, where women can report concerns about particular areas. And this has been an increase in the use in Ealing, and is being used as part of the monthly WOG deep dive meeting to target sort of resourcing and police activities. We will engage with our faith organizations, with doctor surgeries, that will always be able to help in signposting, and also with the language barriers, and thinks about working with our partners and making sure that we have champions in each of those areas who can support the vulnerable women and girls who can report safely through different channels rather than going to the police directly.
Okay, thank you very much. Unless there are any more comments or questions on that report, I will ask Cabinet members to review the recommendations and ask that they're agreed.
Agreed.
The Tri-Borough Leisure Contract, Councillor Newstub.
Thank you, Chair. This is simply us revisiting our leisure contract. We will work again with Brenton Harrow to achieve economies of scale and reach. Currently, we work with Everyone Active. This is the kicking off the process in order to secure a leisure contract that will be shared across the three boroughs for 10 years to come. And we'll see this report again when there's a decision made to award to a provider.
Thank you very much. I didn't have any indications to ask a question on this one, so it's a fairly straightforward report, and it contains a significant amount of the council's leisure offer. So let's see what happens in the procurement exercise. But unless there is anything else, I'll ask that Cabinet members review the recommendations that are in the report and ask that they're agreed. Item 11 is just for information that there is a urgent and key decision exempted from call-in that will be taken, or if not, it hasn't already been taken. No, will be taken in 10 days' time on 27th of March. The date of the next meeting, therefore, is on Thursday, the 16th of May, 2024. That is before the annual council, so it technically will still be within this civic year. So we'll see you for the final one of that year then. But until then, thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you soon.